In this episode, we discuss the relationship between self-comforting and conspiratorial thinking when navigating the conceptual space. Welcome to the Bottom Turtle Podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bottom Turtle Podcast. My name is Dr. Shannon Ray, and we're joined by our co-host, Oyani Onemiya. How you doing, Oyani?
I'm doing okay, Shannon. What up, though? Happy New Year? Happy New Year. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We haven't seen each other. We haven't recorded, rather, since last year. Yeah. How was your vacation? You went up to Colorado or something?
It was nice, man. I went to go see my best friend Jacob. He's my best friend since I was 7, so second grade was when I first met him. So I went to see him and his spouse Jamie. And, we pretty much did exactly what I would have been doing here, which is social distancing in the house. But he's a chef, so he made a lot of good food. And, nice. We played some video games together. We played, what do you call that game? Resident Evil 7. And like when
Is there a co-op mode on that?
No. We did it the way we did back when we were kids. Like when we were younger, we were really into horror. Like most of my bonding in terms of horror with him. And like when we used to hang out by going to the video store, which was actually at the grocery store, and just renting every single crappy horror movie you can imagine. But we also were really into horror games. So one of the things that we really bonded over was Silent Hill. And so the way we used to play that is pretty much Jacob would be the primary person to play the game, but those games like the atmosphere and trying to solve the puzzles and all that stuff.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, we just go into the basement, turn off all the lights, get some snacks, and just play that game. And so, as adults, we're trying to replicate, just hanging out and vibing with each other. And so we got that Resident Evil game, which was solid. It was a really solid game. Like it was pretty exciting, kind of scary. A little intense to play at times. So
for real?
Oh yeah, man! I know you wouldn't like that game. Like it's
I mean the whole Resident Evil series have just never been that much interesting to me. But
me neither.
I didn't think it was that great. Yeah.
Yeah, me neither. This new format is it's like sometimes the Resident Evil games every once in a while they'll revamp themselves and like change their style. So this one was going for like a straight up horror. Like it basically that game made me feel like this is what it would feel like if I was being chased in a house with psychopaths, because they don't have like a radar. Like they minimize the number of things that actually remind you that you're in a game. And so, there are these crazy psychopaths that are pretty much immortal that are walking around the house. And the way that they program these people, like they feel like real, like vengeful, hateful, murderous, creatures, the way they move, the things that they say, the way that they attack, like everything, like they did a really good job at making, this is what it would feel like to be attacked by a psychopath. And because you can't have any radar or anything, they're walking around this house, and you have to keep track of where they are, and then you might like turn the corner and they're there.
They're right there. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely not for me. Just so you know, guys, I do not like horror movies or horror anything.
It's a shame. It's a shame.
So, yeah, I've been meaning to get into it again to see if maybe I'll handle it a little better. But you were supposed to recommend some horror movies for me.
Oh shit, you're right. Yeah, I was supposed to ease you into it. I was gonna suggest like one of the movies that I enjoyed. It's more like a horror thriller psychological bending thing, but it's the Mothman Prophecies. That I think will be not too scary, but it'll be cerebral enough to where you're trying to figure out what's going on, and it's trippy enough.
Mothman, what?
The Mothman Prophecies. It has what's that dude's name? The Richard Gere, I think his name is.
Oh,
the dude with the silver hair for eternity. I think,
Isn't that the dude from Pretty Woman? I think it was.
From what?
Pretty Woman.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, okay. All right.
But the thing that I really liked about the trip was the food, because Jacob the chef, and of course he wants to cook for his friend.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing I love. Like we're talking the way that we kind of frame things is in terms of playing games and stuff like that, and we're trying to maximize the number of games that you play where nobody loses. The thing about the game food is no one loses that game. Jacob's a chef, so he's trying to create delicious food. And of course, so he's getting a passion and joy out of that. So he creates the delicious food, and then he hands it to somebody he loves, right? So and then that person gets to eat the food, and give an honest critique about the quality of the food. That's the important part. You don't want to lie to the person about the food, because it's even more important, because if Jacob gives me the food and I enjoy it and I praise it, then he gets a trophy. He gets a trophy of accomplishing.
He gets like real data. Yeah.
He gets real data. He gets real feedback, for one, so he can improve the quality of his food. He can know what works and what doesn't work. He can get a true trophy if I really enjoyed it. I get delicious food. His skills go up as a chef. I get delicious food. And we bond with each other. Like, no one loses that game.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and so it was really fun just kind of vibing out with someone who, you've had this relationship with so long.
Yeah. Especially being that we've been stuck in the house for so long, so that must have felt really good to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I envy you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm self quarantining in the house right now. Eunice is in the basement. I'm upstairs because we don't want to make sure. So I got a COVID test yesterday, and I'm hoping to get the results soon so that we can actually interact.
Yeah, but I mean, small price to pay.
Yeah, but actually, one thing I wanted to bring up was that game that you're playing with your sister. The one where you're
the book thing.
That I was thinking about that after the podcast, and that is a beautiful game you guys are playing. Like, I think that's a really loving game.
Yeah, and I think it all came about with her just trying to get back into writing, and again, and shout out to my sister, by the way. I think I talked about her book last week, but I forgot to name the author of the book. So her name is Bernice Richards, and the book is called Brave Chris.
Yeah,
it's available on eBay and Kindle and all that stuff. And she's trying to do some merchandising with it as well. But she used to really do a lot of writing when she was younger, and she kind of put that on the back burner for a while. Trying to set up her business in Canada, and she's starting to get back into it. And for me, I'm always looking for a creative outlet. That's kind of all I go about my day doing. Like, I want to paint. I want to, I always have to keep creating something. I feel like that's something. Where, I feel like
get bored otherwise.
Yeah, you get bored otherwise.
What else is there to do? Just pick a game and play it, for fuck's sake. Come on.
So, I came up with the idea that we should, both collaborate on a book, and, we each get the book for a week.
Yeah.
And it's a long, full-length story, and we each get a book for a week. We write for that week, and then we transfer it over to the next person, and the next person has to figure out how to continue the story based off of what the person who had it previously had written. And it's really interesting because you can kind of see the story, take a nice little arcs, and I feel like sometimes when I read it, you can notice the two different styles of writing and the transition. It's really cool, man. I think when we're done, I'm gonna share it with you so you can take a look at it. But I think we get a lot of fun from doing that.
I've been trying to reconnect with people. I've been trying to keep connected. I mean, I usually keep real connected with my friends and stuff, but I'm trying to be a little more active with it. And that's one really positive thing about social media. It's like people that you knew that you didn't interact with a lot, but you interacted with enough. They're all still there. You don't forget them because every single day you log onto Facebook and it's like, oh yeah, that person existed. Now we had these memories. Yeah, it'd be nice to play this game with find a few people to play this game with, because I can imagine playing that game that you write something and you hand it to her. But I can imagine you go, okay, I'm going to put the characters in this situation, that situation. And when you hand it to her, she has it for a week. So you're imagining, how is she going to solve this problem? What's she going to do? And the more you play this game with her, the more you can start probably like predicting, like, oh, this is, whenever given this problem, this is how she usually tends to solve this. This is how she tends to do this. And you literally get to learn more about her as a person, how she thinks, how she resolves problems, what she does, what type of problems she gives you to solve.
And in support to your statement, it's interesting because I feel like since doing that, I've gotten really a lot closer to her.
Oh, yeah. I can't.
Because I remember when I was younger, we used to be like really tight, my sister and I.
Yeah.
And, of course, we grew up, she moved to a different country. So, the relationship was there, but it wasn't like we're not talking as constantly. But now I feel like we are always constantly talking to each other, so I feel like, you're right. The bond is definitely stronger. There was a portion of the book I had written about this girl who had gone to her grandma's house to look for something. And that was kind of where I just left it. So when she got it, she crafted this something the girl was looking for. And I don't want to give it away because we might end up publishing it or whatever. Yeah. But she crafted this something the girl was looking for just out of thin air. Yeah. And when I got the book back, I had to then write the story and put that thing that the girl found at her grandma's house into the story going forward.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, man.
It truly does sound like a way to get to know somebody, like on a deeper level, because you know, it's not a matter of interacting with someone like that and them trying to put up some sort of front, you know, at least if you guys are interacting in this game honestly, which I assume you are, you're being given a real puzzle. The constraints of what you've written determine what you write next. You guys don't have the freedom to write whatever you want. And so whenever anyone's writing a story, you know, they want the story to go from one point to the other, but as they create more content, more context, they lose freedom of what they can write. And so that's when you actually have to start being clever. That's when you actually have to start like using your mind to navigate the space that has been created by the story. And so you get to learn, like you can probably evaluate something about her intellect, which I'm assuming she's probably pretty smart given, you know, what I know of you and your family, man. You guys are pretty sharp people.
I think she's probably the smartest one anyway.
Oh, for real? God damn, that's quite the statement, man.
I think she's probably the smartest one.
Because I've met Audrey, man. That dude's pretty smart.
She is probably yeah.
I miss that dude, by the way. He's hilarious.
Yeah. I'm really close to my siblings, and I think that's one thing that's gotten so much better as we've grown older, because I think there's so much respect for each other's opinions. Yeah. So we're willing to, like, you know, listen to this person's point of view. Hey, we might not agree, we might agree, but we'll go back and forth about it. And we've really gotten to know each other quite a bit.
On a deeper level, yeah. And doing stuff like this is always going to help.
It's a great way.
And but yeah, that idea of, you know, okay, you know, given, like, it would be just fun, honestly, to look at like a good storyteller or a good writer or just someone who's, you know, has some strong cognitive capabilities to like put them in a situation where you have an actual strong structure. There's no BS, you know, they don't have the, I mean, like we were saying last episode, if you hand your sister part of the story and then she just brings in these new mechanics and suddenly the characters can walk through walls with no explanation, then it's like, you know, if you're playing a game with someone, they're doing that, then you start getting a little concerned about where their mind is, you know?
Yeah. And I think and that's the reason why I noticed that both of us, we gravitate towards movies and books and, you know, any sort of creative endeavor that has an interesting constraint to it. Yeah. So for me, when I read the synopsis of a movie or something, like, for example, the Tom Hardy movie.
Locke. Yeah, you know, we never actually explained that with the premise of that movie. I don't know if we have time to do it now, but...
Yeah, so the funny thing about that movie was what really made me interested in watching it was the fact that, so they shot everything in this car? Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, let's see what they're going to do now. Yep. You know, because I can see that you have to be creative to make this work.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You have to be creative to make this work now. Yeah.
It was like I was saying that in that failed podcast that didn't get released because, you know, we didn't like it. But there was that movie with Ryan Reynolds. So in the old podcast, I was talking about when I was in grad school, I invited this girl over. And, you know, I was trying to get with this girl. And
she's probably listened to this, by the way, but go on.
Shit, no, she does. No, she isn't. Absolutely not. But you know, like I was saying, she's someone who you'd want to get a movie where it's probably more actiony, more straightforward. And I got this movie where Ryan Reynolds is stuck in a box for like 2 hours.
Oh yeah, oof.
And the thing about that movie is there, you know the constraints of that story. Yeah. You know, the guy's in the box. You got to make it interesting.
You're going in for the constraints, man.
Yeah. What can you do with that? Like, what can challenge myself and see if I can make a compelling story when I give a character a lighter, a phone, and they're in a box the entire time. That's a real space to navigate because you have to do something real. You have to make something compelling and entertaining that captures people's imaginations and minds. And you have these very limited resources.
Yeah, and the space of ideas you can search for has just been completely
shrunk
down.
Yep, been reduced down significantly.
Down. Yeah. Now you're like, okay, so these are all I got now. All right, let's make something out of this.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
And at the end of the day, when you create something great out of that, you walk away with an actual real trophy. Like you accomplished something significant by creating an entire movie of a dude just driving down a highway at night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that the lock is absolutely a success, I think. Yeah. And you know, the idea of simply subverting the constraints or not respecting them and just creating your own world in spite of the constraints, it's easy. Like, it doesn't require like we're trying to say, like, you know, it would be like if you're playing a crossword puzzle and you could put anything you wanted into each box, and it never mattered, and everything,
and it just fit,
or it doesn't fit, and you don't care. Like, you just put, there are no constraints. It's just a white square divided up, so there are no black constraint box. You can just write whatever you want in there,
whatever you want in there. Yeah,
and then afterwards you fill in anything you want, and then you step back and look at it and pat yourself on the back, like you've done nothing. You did absolutely nothing, and then you gave yourself a false trophy afterwards.
And I think this really ties in well with you know, the idea of conspiracy theorists and how they really give in to the ease at which they can just manipulate a story or information just to fit it into whatever.
Yeah, just to fit into whatever. And you know, the way that I was thinking about conspiracy theory thinking, because, you know, again, previously we were talking about the constraints that I have to navigate are mathematics. Yeah. And so whenever I'm doing my work, what it feels like I'm doing is I'm trying to navigate the space. But unlike the physical space, where the space is a stable structure that I can just navigate around, in the physical space, I don't actually have to like make my surroundings stable. They are stable. I just have to look at what things are and navigate them. But when I'm playing math, I'm constructing the space in my mind. So it'd almost be like, imagine you have to, like, not only do you have to navigate the space, but you have to render it as you're moving through it. And and the funny thing about that is the constraints are like walls. So if I'm trying to connect two ideas, I can't just turn and walk through walls. It's a literal physical constraint. I can't just walk through walls. I have to find a path to connect
around
these
the wall, or a way to create a door through the wall, something.
You can't
just. Dude, you remember I told you about this friend of mine who, and you know, we grew up together, and it's interesting. Like, I hadn't spoken to him for years up until a couple of months ago before the election and whatnot. And I reached out to him because I was seeing a lot of the posts that he was, putting online was like, bro, what are you doing?
I've seen that. Yep.
So, you know, I reached out to him and I'm like, what's going on? And, you know, just to kind of get a peek into his mind and to see how far from reality it's fascinating to me. Yeah. And one of the things that really drove this home was the conversation that we had right after this this whole thing that happened at the Capitol a few days ago. So I reached out to him, you know, and of course I know I was just trying to stir the pot anyway, but I reached out to him.
Okay, you're aware of what you're doing. Yeah,
I reached out to him and I was like, oh, you know, what are your thoughts about, you know, what happened? And, you know, his first response was, he doesn't agree with it because, you know, violence is never the answer. So, you know, I'm thinking, oh, okay. You know, at least we can agree on that one. And then he goes, but you have to understand though, you know, it was the Democrats that infiltrated the peaceful protests just to make a point. Like, do you really think that, you know, Trump supported these violent? And I was like, okay. How did you come to this conclusion though? Yeah. And then he goes, oh, you wouldn't understand. And then the next day he sends me like 4 YouTube videos from some random dudes I don't even know.
Yeah.
Saying exactly what he wanted.
Yep.
And one of the things that struck me was the problem. It's so easy. And I started to realize how easy it is for you to fall into this whole quicksand of conspiracy theories and not even know your way out. Yeah. Because imagine that you have an idea in your head. You know, let's say, you know,
I wish I had less ideas in my head sometimes.
Let's say the basis of your idea is, you know, is it's not false, but it's not true or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're going through your day-to-day, through your life with this idea in your head.
Yes.
When you encounter new information,
yes, yeah.
that is, opposing to what you believe or questioning what you believe or whatever, simply because you want to hold on to that idea that you have.
Yep.
You're almost trying to fit it into something that it's like, wait, there's no data to support this.
Yes.
So once you start to build on that, this is why conspiracy stories start to get more and more ridiculous. Yeah. Because you keep, just like you said, you're trying to navigate this space with walls, and all you're doing is you're just busting through walls left and right, just making stuff up. Oh, well, there's a wall here. All right, well, then I could just go in here. No, you can't.
Well, the way I kind of see it is it's like I was using that example of it almost be like going to a plot of land that nobody wants and nobody cares about, and it's like it's like just some desolate little piece of land, and then going there and declaring yourself king or something like that, and then building up that you are basically trying to act as though. Well, actually, I want to use the other example. It's more like I was saying with like the NBA, for example. Yeah. And imagine that when you played in the NBA and you win a championship and you're doing all this stuff, you're playing a true game that's structured, that is sanctioned, that people agree is valuable when you get to the top and you win. And then imagine that someone creates their own league, their own NBA league, and then they I see
where this is going.
Yeah, they create their own league, they'll make up their own rules, but then they label their league as the NBA. And then they go and they either make up that they won or they make up the rule to the game. Then they go, look, I'm an NBA champion. And then they want people to treat their NBA championship that they made up as though it were an actual NBA champion.
Yes.
But that you just giving yourself a false trophy. You've done nothing. You're not playing the game you think you're playing. And that's one thing I was just thinking about, is relating that game you're playing with your sister, where you have to take in data, you have to read what she wrote, and then you have to create based off what you've read.
Off of that. And then automatically the constraints are already put up. Now the constraints are there now, so you have to find the space where you can search for your ideas from is in here now. Oh, this is the spot. Yeah, well, now I'm stuck with this. Now what do I do?
Yep.
A conspiracy theorist, on the other hand, will completely ignore all constraints and just continue to just create things on, and eventually nothing is. I asked this.
Nothing is tethered to reality. Yeah, and it's almost like if you were to read in the data and then completely disregard everything your sister has written just so that you can write whatever you want. That's essentially what you're doing when you treat reality. Because again, if you treat reality as like literature, where you're reading in data and then you have to interpret the data, and then based off that interpretation, you have to take action, which is your action of creating. So you're reading in data and then you create. And if you are reading in, if you're not being honest about the data you're reading in just so that you can make up whatever you want, then you're completely lost. Like you're living in a delusional fantasy world in which so you're comforting yourself with false trophies.
Yeah.
You're pretending like you're playing the game reality when you're really just playing your made up NBA league that you just made up.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that my conversations with this friend of mine has gotten to that realm where, I just realized that there's really no point having conversations like this, because it's obvious that communicating ideas is not the goal here.
Yes.
It's obvious that that's not. Like, I asked him a simple question. Okay, these videos you sent me, who are these people? Like, what's the veracity of this video? Like, what's the source? Like, how is this truth?
Yes.
So you're telling me some dude in front of a camera saying stuff is enough data for you to just go with and just base your model of reality on.
You can base your model of reality, and that's something that you just said, is like, how is this truth?
Yeah.
And that's what I think. Like a lot of times with this self-comforting, what you're doing is you're not optimizing for truth. Like we were saying before, we have to create these objective functions. And the objective functions determine your constraints. It determines the space you have to navigate in. And if you're trying to do something like science, like people who are going like flat earth, like they're trying to determine something about reality, it's almost like what they're doing is they are taking the game of science and creating knowledge. And then they are pretending as though the constraints they're navigating are to try to get to truth like we do in science. But instead, what they're really doing is they're making a false world, calling it science or investigation of knowledge, but they're really optimizing the objective function of how they feel. Yeah. And so they're not optimizing for truth. That's why you said, how is this truth? It's not truth they're optimizing how they feel. And once you start doing that, that's how you can just get lost, because you have taken a space, you've labeled it something that it isn't, and then you are moving in the space based off how you feel, but you have convinced yourself that you're navigating the space of reality to create knowledge. It's just, you are completely lost at that point. How do you navigate that neighbor? It would be like, walking around imagining that you're walking around in a grocery store getting groceries, but in reality, you're walking around in a slaughterhouse, and you're just like, oh, no, whatever data I get, I'm just going to reinterpret it so that in my mind, I'm in a grocery store.
Yep. It's a scary thought. Like at the height of this flat Earth conspiracy, I was working in aviation at the time, and I spoke to this dude who was an interesting conversation, and his argument was that it's all a conspiracy because when you're trying to fly from New York to, say, the Gambia, for example, if you look at the map, right? Yeah. Again, like a 2-dimensional flat map on a wall or whatever. It looks like the Gambia is right here on my right, and the U.S. is on the left. Yeah. And so to go from the U.S. to Gambia, you could just fly straight. And it would be shorter. And his argument was that why do they have to go with the curvature of the Earth? And I tried to explain to him that because the winds there are better. Yeah. There's no conspiracy why they don't fly straight. They don't fly straight because they're just going to burn so much gas. Like, the winds up there are better.
Not only that, but they're talking to a person in aviation who makes the paths, who to go, like, job it is to create the paths to where planes
Trust me,
fly.
I tried that, and the airplane didn't have the gas to do it. There's no conspiracy. Like,
and that's the thing, is whenever you can always take in data and just say, oh, conspiracy, you can dismiss it. You're not trying to get the truth. You're not trying to get the truth at all. And that's one thing when it comes to like the flat Earth stuff, is my interaction with people who kind of believed in that stuff. And one thing that I noticed is that, of course, they'd go to watch YouTube videos again, and I noticed that they didn't have the requisite information to determine whether or not what they were watching was true. And so they don't have the keys. They don't have the expertise to actually verify anything that's being said to them on YouTube. But they get this feeling while they're listening to YouTube that they're getting this new knowledge, that everything that all human knowledge about this subject is false, and somehow this person on YouTube is subverting everything. But the thing is, it's like, when you actually start questioning like the implications of a word being said from someone who actually has a background in physics and like how reality works, what you start to notice is that lack of knowledge is like someone having an opinion about a movie they know nothing about. Yeah. So imagine if there was a movie and someone hasn't seen the movie. They don't know who directed it. They don't know who wrote it. They don't know who's acting in it. They don't know the plot. They don't know where it was shot. They don't know who produced it. They know absolutely nothing about this movie. But they're going around and they're telling people that it's the worst movie and they should avoid it. Now, that opinion, like, because people seem to think that all opinions have value or that you're supposed to respect opinions, that opinion is based off of nothing. It is a useless opinion. It has no value to anybody. It has no value at all.
And you are right about that statement. Like, it's easy for people to slip into that whole everybody's opinion matters. That's my opinion. But we need to start to draw the line, because do we just want to walk around with people who just make up stuff?
Who just make up stuff, yeah. Are we going to pretend as though are we going to pretend as though we're not actually navigating a space with true constraints, and that because of those true objective constraints, that we can't find a way of determining whether or not what someone's saying is true? And of course, when it comes to truth, it all comes down to, can you predict the future with it? Like, if you are actually if you're doing something true, you should be able to make a prediction with it, because again, we're just stuck in these models.
And it was interesting was with the events that happened at the Capitol.
Oh my God, man! Yeah, still reeling from that.
It was easy. It was. I was watching, videos of what happened, and one of the things that struck me was, I was reading a lot of articles about how the police acted very differently at this protest and the Black Lives Matter protest, and it would have been so easy for me to kind of just spiral down into that whole rabbit hole.
Yes.
But I remember I texted you. I was like, man, I am so primed for a conspiracy theory right now. You have no idea. Because I could feel my mind just searching for the easiest answer.
The easiest answer. Yeah. Yep.
I could feel it. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to take a minute, do my own research, watch a couple more videos, read a couple more articles. And then I dug deeper into it. And then I was able to form a more balanced opinion. But I can only imagine like the laziness of the mind.
Yes.
To the point where you see something like that, and then the first conspiracy theory that just goes past you just grab onto that because it reaffirms information you had before.
Yes, exactly. Like what I've been seeing a lot of people post stuff like, if this were black people, then they would all be gunned down. But the thing about statements like that is that wasn't black people. And so you don't actually have a reality. Like, you can say statements like that with certainty because there is no way. It's a non-falsifiable statement. No one can falsify that. And it was actually, I came to that realization back when I was in grad school. I was talking to one of my good friends, Ilya Valinsky, and we were talking about, it was at some point in time Obama was president, and some Marines got captured in the Persian Gulf, I think, or something like that. And I remember watching the news, and there's all these people on the news saying, "Oh, if Obama had done this, or if Obama had done that, then this would have happened." Or they were criticizing Obama's decisions on handling the situation, in a way in which they were like certain that if he had done this and this would have happened. But there is no second reality. Like, you can say stuff with certainty like that because there's no falsifiable, there's no constraint. It's just that is when you start realizing that you're not trying to look at what data is actually there and then construct an opinion as far as you can construct it based off what you have there. Because, the certainty that you have depends on how much information you have. We can look at how much data that is there and determine whether or not the statement you're making with so much certainty is plausible. And most of the time it isn't. And that's how people are lying to you. Like we were saying in the first episode, that is lying.
It really is, because and I think we talked about this sometime this week, where it's so easy for you to come to conclusions, but at some point you need to take a step back. Look at the information in front of you and ask yourself, how much am I making up in this? This is the information in front of me. Okay, I've watched this video. It's a 2-minute video. This is all of it. Then you go down into the comments and people have extrapolated all kinds of stuff from like, wait, guys.
Yeah.
Not unless you have another source that you want to cite.
Yeah.
All of that is not in this information that's right here in front of us.
It's not possible for you to draw a conclusion with that much certainty. And that's again another thing we're saying in the first episode, is that in information theory, when you're looking at something like a probability distribution, like again, flipping a coin, heads or tails, you can have everything from 100% heads to 0% tails, and to 0%, 50-50, 0% heads, 100% tails, like everything in between, all those possible distributions. In information theory, we can compute the entropy of that thing. And the entropy is like, it's like a, God, I came up with a saying recently. It's like a measure of your location on the spectrum between uncertainty and information. When you have maximum uncertainty, you have maximum entropy. When you have maximum information and zero uncertainty, meaning this is how we define knowing, at least how I'm defining knowing in this context. To know is to have zero entropy. And that's when there is zero uncertainty. So when I flip that coin, I know exactly it's going to land on. I know exactly what's going to happen. And so whenever you're on this spectrum of the information entropy, if you know the distribution after I compute entropy is somewhere like a quarter away from uncertainty, so say 0 is, or the left side of the bar is uncertainty and the right side of the bar is information, and I'm somewhere like a quarter away from uncertainty, and so there's all this well, what would that mean? Let's say that let's say that I am. Let's say that being a quarter way. So let's try to reimagine this more clearly. So imagine that you have this bar, and at one end of the bar is uncertainty, the other end of the bar is information. And let's say that as I move, so the uncertainty is on the left side, this information on the right side, and as I move further from the left side, I go from being less uncertain and more certain. So and so imagine that I'm somewhere in between that bar. And then, and so I know how certain you can be about something because I computed the entropy. I know how certain you can be. And so you take the situation and then you pretend as though it's like the best example is imagine that I know for a fact that it's a 50-50 coin. So it's a maximally uncertain coin. If I flip it, it's maximally uncertain. Let's say that's what it is. And someone comes up to you and goes, oh yeah, 100% that next time you flip it, it's gonna flip tails or it's gonna flip heads. You're like, no. There's no way you can know that. There's nothing about this coin that can make you that certain that it's gonna land on heads or tails. You're just full of crap.
And I think more and more people should start to, create that kind of a relationship with information to where, you're not in the game to try to be right all the time.
No.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people get lost in that idea, like they want to be right. The main, at least how I play the game, is I want to know.
Yes.
I want to know.
I want to be right, but I want to be right in the sense that the data is accurate, that my model of reality is high fidelity. That's the sense of when I want to be right. So sometimes to be right, I have to be wrong if someone convinces me I'm full of crap.
You know what? I got this brand new information now. Let me update this and keep it moving. I'm not going to die on a hill and keep trying to bend reality to fit the model that's in my head. It scares me to go through life that way.
Yes.
Because at some point, you're going to just be completely lost to where you can't even tell what is true and what's not anymore, even with the things that actually matter.
Yeah.
And a perfect example would be what happened in Capitol the other days, because these people have become completely lost in this idea to the extent that they were willing to put themselves in harm's way for something that you don't even have that much certainty of the information of.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Okay. So yeah. Sorry. I was a little bit distracted because I was trying to find a quote. And it's from when I was younger and I was in grad school. And even up to grad school, I could be pretty naive, and I probably still am, a lot now. But I feel like I'm speaking from experience because I know what it feels like to do all this stuff. And that's part of growing. Part of growing is like being aware of what you're doing, recognizing the flaws, and then adapting so that you're better next time. Yep. And so I know I used to do this stuff. And so there was this movie that was real popular that I watched called Zeitgeist. And I know when I watched the Zeitgeist movies, when I first watched them, I was probably just lapping everything up without thinking. But even though I wouldn't recommend that movie as like a source of knowledge or truth, especially if you're going to go and watch it with high skepticism, but it still has some good stuff in it. And one of the things in the movie is someone says being wrong is erroneously associated with failure, when in fact, to be proven wrong should be celebrated, for it elevates someone to a new level of understanding. And that is a beautiful statement.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary, it's like, if I got anything from that movie, this was one of the quotes that I absolutely love. And it's all about trying to literally understand, like to navigate the space. Reality creates constraints. It creates a literal space, both in the physical, but also in the mental. Because when you're taking in data and you're reading it in, it's like reading in literature. You have to interpret it. And you have to interpret the literature, but imagine that instead of just interpreting it and having to write a paper and determine whether you get an A or B, your life depends on it.
Yeah. And you being able to navigate that space and not get lost, that shit is important, man.
It's important.
You have to pay attention to who's feeding you information, how current is it, how can you verify it, who's the source of, like, what's the goal behind whoever.
What's the uncertainty level? Like,
what's so funny about YouTube and how people have decided that YouTube is God, to where it can just disseminate information to them and they just lap it up, is you do know YouTube pays these people, right?
Oh, you mean like through advertisement and stuff?
Yes, these people, there's an incentive to just create content that, like, they're not trying to like save you. No, they're trying to just feed themselves. Of course they're gonna do nefarious shit.
Yep. Yeah, you can't.
For
you
you
can't
to just completely just take that in and not be like skeptic enough to go, okay, this is interesting information. Let me verify this. But you find people just spread it.
Yeah,
and they just spread it.
Because Because, like I said, it's about your feelings. You're optimizing for your feelings, and you're probably convincing yourself you're optimizing for truth. Because if you convince yourself you're optimizing for truth, then you can give yourself a trophy when you think that you're in the know or you have some sort of special knowledge. Yep. And all this false trophy, all it does is cloud your data, and it puts you in a point of delusional fantasizing. And, one of my friends, a really good friend I've made, actually, it's probably one of the closest friends I've made since I moved up here.
Friends. I thought I was a really close friend.
Psh, come on. You ain't, I mean, you're special, but you ain't that special. But, yeah, so, his name is Tom Grinnell. He's a war veteran. So he was a Marine. He was a former sheriff. He's an MMA fighter, a father, a husband.
Yeah, I met Tom.
You met him. Yeah. I think we watched the Israel Adesanya fight with him. Cool, yeah, he's an amazing person. And I remember I was hanging out with him at one point in time because we really like to vibe out talking about consciousness and spirituality and stuff like that. And he was obsessed at one point in time with the idea of getting rid of the filler. So he was just like, man, I want to get rid of the filler. I want to get the filler out of my life. He's like, it's like a real beef burger. Like, I don't want that McDonald's burger where it's like half filler. I want the true beef. And I had also been thinking about this idea of false trophies. So like my version of no filler is not giving yourself false trophies to lie to yourself about what you're doing and what you've accomplished. And I kind of developed this idea, like a term I want to coin called Grinnell's razor, where it's like Occam's razor, where you're getting rid of unnecessary elements to trying to interpret or understand something. It's like the same thing with your life, where you're trying to get rid of unreal bullcrap about who you are, what you're doing, what trophies you have. Because the thing is what when you get abilities are. What your actual abilities are. Because the thing is when you're living in reality and you're playing real games and you're getting real trophies, you don't have to make stuff up.
And I think just being someone who is able to, go through life with that level of eagerness to want to to gain new information, to want to update the information that you have, to communicate with people, and when you make that mind connection, or what do we call it? And I think it was 2 episodes ago, when you connect with someone,
mind melding, make a composite mind,
make a composite mind. Yeah, we'll go. So when you meet up with people and do that, you want to walk away and feel like you have new information now.
Yes,
you've updated the system. Like you don't have to be right, and being wrong is not a bad thing either.
Yeah. And this is why we were saying before, like this idea of exchanging true data is an act of love, because like we were saying in that quote from that Zeitgeist movie, to be proven wrong is great because now you have a better understanding. If you have a better understanding of how reality works and what the state of it is, you can create better. You can create the situation that you want. You can actually navigate the space so that you can put yourself in a good neighborhood, and then you can learn what you have to do to make that configuration stable. And it's all about the stability of configurations. And that's essentially what we're doing with information in society and all this stuff, is that inherently things decay. If you let them sit for long enough, they'll decay and rot, and they will the arrow of entropy, they will become random noise. And it actually takes work and energy. You have to do work on the system to build and maintain something.
And preserve it. Yes.
And preserve it. And that's what you actually were saying before in the first episode. Like, we're trying to preserve the system. And with this whole stuff going on with Trump and our current political environment, and like, I'm really becoming concerned about whether or not our society is going to remain stable. Because it seems as though all of this self-comforting, all of this is going on social media and trying to optimize for feelings. And, once you're optimizing for feelings, if someone goes, people are looking for this feeling, I'm going to produce this content. I'm just going to keep giving it to you because it benefits me. I don't care if it hurts you. I get this benefit from it. And, if this just continues happening, like yesterday I was thinking about this whole Trump thing, and I don't think it really, really hit me clearly how precarious the situation we're in right now, how unstable we are becoming as a society. And I'm genuinely worried.
And like we say, everything leads back to information. You have to understand that it's the information these people are absorbing constantly.
Yes.
It's creating the reality they live in.
Yep. Yep.
I can't imagine you going on and on about, like my buddy who was just talking about when, yeah, I forgot to even tell you this part of the story. And this is interesting because one of the things that was important to me when I became a U.S. citizen was I wanted to learn about the jury system.
Yes.
And I wanted to see how the elections worked.
Yep.
And so I've been waiting to go on jury duty forever, but I haven't gotten a letter yet.
Man, I also want to do jury duty. I never got it.
I really want to do it. And so I decided to sign up to be an election judge. And so I went through the process. It's a very important job, but it is tedious.
Yeah.
It's a whole day. You're on your feet. You're trying to help people who are impatient with you. But it got me to really see how the system works compared to my country, where it's just a box. You stuff it with some paper, and there's a soldier there with a gun or whatever. and then thugs can come in, grab the box, and run away. That's pretty much.
There's no oversight at all.
So, but here, I watched the process, and it's pretty convoluted. Yeah. It's not as cut and dry. And so when this same friend of mine was telling me how there was so much election fraud, I told him, okay, I'm not disputing that there wasn't any fraud because I can't say with any absoluteness that there wasn't. Yes. But based off of the data that I have seen so far, it doesn't seem like there's any truth to this. To make
any large-scale fraud.
Yeah, any large-scale fraud. To make matters worse, I have worked as an election judge. So I went through the process of explaining to him how the whole thing works.
Yeah.
And his response was, well, I'll just accept that there was no fraud in the polling station you were at.
Yeah.
It's like, do you just want to go through life doing this to yourself?
Yeah. No matter what data you get in, you can always escape into a plausibility. Yeah. Oh, well, you can always construct some sort of plausible explanation. It's just like, and I haven't verified this data. It's just, I've got it through osmosis through, just existing. Anyway, I'm trying to give you my level of certainty. I'm not extraordinarily confident in it. But what I'm trying to say is that I've heard people in this Trump thing trying to blame Antifa for the whole disaster that happened. And it's like, okay, let's assume that there could have been some people in Antifa there who are causing a ruckus, you know what I mean? Or who are inciting or whatever. It's like, but for one, you have to have some solid data to contribute all of the problem to that. Like, there's no way that even if there was a few of them there, that you could contribute the entire problem to that. If you are in just like your friend, if you're trying to find a way to maintain the reality you're in by it was Antifa or something like that. The thing is, like, you have to ignore the fact that Trump basically would, even while he was president, refuse to say whether he'd concede. Spent all this time leading up to the election saying that it was going to be fraudulent. We have that data.
So why do you want me to believe something else now?
Yeah, but it gets worse. It gets worse. Like, all that time leading up there, and then once losing, spending all this time telling people that everything was stolen, despite the fact that you're looking at like that phone call with the Secretary of State from Georgia. Yeah, that phone call demonstrating like officials saying like, yeah, no, what you're saying isn't true. Like, we're doing our own investigation. We're doing our own data. Like, do you think that dude is just making that up? Like, he took it to the courts. They went to judges. Everyone's like, there's not sufficient evidence for what you're claiming. And so you get all of that. Despite that, he's still claiming the election was stolen, all of this stuff. And you're going to take all of that data, the fact that he had a rally right before, the fact that he said that we're going to march over there, all this stuff. And then you're going to say,
all the violent rhetoric that's been coming out all the rhetoric from that suddenly now, it's BLM and Antifa.
Or it's Antifa, and I'm gonna escape into a fantasy in which that's the explanation, and I can now continue believing what I believe because I found myself a scapegoat, so I don't actually have to think for myself. I don't actually have to think. It's pure madness. And the thing is, it's not as though I'm going over here like backing up Antifa. You will never see me supporting or backing any Antifa anything.
Any violent group.
But it's not about them. Like, this conversation isn't about them. It's about the escapism from reality. And the self-comforting and the always constantly seeking for things that make you feel good as opposed to things that are true.
True. And you actually trying to seek knowledge. So,
The truth can be painful. Like, you have to be able to be uncomfortable when you experience it. Otherwise, there's no way you're just going to walk around it all the time.
And in closing, I want to just leave with this statement that has been one of my guiding rods for the past 4 years. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing.
Yeah.
And I always remind myself about this. Like, that, just watch a seed break through soil.
Yeah. Oh,
it's not. Beautiful. It doesn't just teleport. And it's like, oh, I'm up here, guys. No, it pushes through that. That's how you grow.
This beautiful imagery, man. I love it.
And you have to just deal with that pain, and it's going to hurt. And sometimes the truth is going to feel that way. You're going to be uncomfortable. Yeah. But just remind yourself that you're growing. Every time you end up being wrong about an information that you had before, and you have to correct yourself or apologize or say I'm sorry or go back on something that you held dear before, you are growing through that discomfort that you feel.
Yeah.
And people, like you said, are optimizing for their feelings. And if you're optimizing for your feelings, you don't want to be uncomfortable. So
it's like talking. Yeah, like talking with my my friend Howard Blair, another person I like to talk. He's actually a computer scientist, like a retired computer scientist. Yeah. And we talk about a lot about like consciousness and spiritual ideas and stuff like that as well. And we were talking once about the dangers of self-comforting. Like a lot of issues I think people have derive from self-comforting as opposed to being uncomfortable long enough to grow and see the truth. And in ending some final thoughts, we want to always try to get the truth, and you want to try to give people true data, listen to other people's data so that you can optimize,
with
optimize
the mindset
fidelity.
That you're trying to like learn something from them, you're trying to understand what they're saying, you're trying to communicate with them.
And play games like food. Like, one thing I love doing with my wife is cooking for her and her cooking for me. Like we love it. No one loses that game.
Yeah.
As long as we can take criticism, as long as we can take criticism to grow from the fact that we can improve this, no one loses.
Yeah.
It's just all love.
Yeah, it is all love. So, hey guys, show us some love. Let us know.
Yeah. Solid transition. Good.
Show us some love, guys. Let us know if, we're on the right track. If you agree, if you disagree, hey, let us know. We really do need that information. I know we say this every week, but
we're serious.
It's something that we're serious about. I want to update my data. I want to feel safe.
Yes.
Imagine going into a neighborhood or driving down the road where I've driven down this road a million times before. I know every curve. But then there's a new bump over there, and someone tries to tell you, wouldn't you want someone to tell you there's a bump there now?
Exactly.
Yeah, like I want to know. So guys, let us know. We are excited to hear from you guys. Like always, hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at the Bottom Total Podcast.
And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends, and leave a review and rate. Like all that stuff really helps us, and we want to grow.
It really helps.
Yeah.
So I think we're gonna leave it there, guys. We'll catch you guys next week. Stay safe from the virus, and
stay turtling, my friends.
Stay turtling, my friends. We gotta get used to saying that.
Yeah. All right. We just don't know when to say it. Peace.